Welcome to the Spirit of Apollo. I'm your host, Mark Lesmeister. Today we're going to build the two static displays from the model kit. There is a lunar surface static display and a splashdown display. And after building those, we're going to talk a little bit about one of the lessons of Apollo, which is the growth that can come with adversity. So here is the lunar surface as envisioned by the LEGO creators. When we last saw the lunar module, it was assembled with, we put it in the legs up configuration, but here we're going to have it in the legs down configuration as it would appear when it landed on the moon. So let's go ahead and put our lunar module in place here. We'll put it right smack dab in the middle there. We have a place up front, a little platform where we can put one of our astronauts, perhaps Buzz Aldrin, there, and then a place not too far from the other astronaut. From the first astronaut, put the other astronaut, and of course we must have the American flag present, perhaps over there. There's a lot of lore that goes about the landing on the moon. The first word spoken on the moon, if you ask somebody from Houston, they will say it's Houston. The first word, according to Buzz Aldrin, was contact, when he said contact light, when a probe from the bottom of the lunar module first made contact with the lunar surface. Still, I think we can grant the city of Houston the claim to fame that the first transmission from a moon base began Houston, Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed. So when the astronauts were ready to leave the surface of the moon in the lunar module, the bottom part of the lunar module stayed behind, and just the top part here took off with its own rocket motor and went and rejoined the command module. This model actually shows the American flag being placed fairly close to the base of the lunar module. That's actually realistic for Apollo 11. Buzz Aldrin reported that he thought he saw the American flag getting blown over by the rocket exhaust when they took off to leave the surface of the moon. Subsequent Apollo missions that landed on the moon had the American flag placed a little bit farther away. One thing people often ask about the lunar landings is, well, why does the flag on the moon point straight out? There's no wind on the moon to keep it pointed out that way. Well, they actually had an aluminum support rod sewn into the top of the flag to keep it unfurled like that. Here is the other static display from our kit. This is to represent the surface of the ocean. As we saw in previous episodes, the command module would splash down into the ocean, and the astronauts then would be picked up by a ship of the U.S. Navy. So we're going to put on this little patch of ocean the command module along with the balloons that would be inflated on the command module to keep it upright. After the balloons, or inflatable spheres as NASA called them, inflated, if the capsule was upside down, it would cause the apex of the capsule to float to the surface, where the force of gravity would then upright the capsule the rest of the way. Navy divers would then attach an inflatable collar around the base of the capsule to further help keep it upright. So here are the two completed vignettes from the kit. These two machines are some of the most impressive pieces of technology ever to be assembled. The story I'm going to tell now concerns the computer on board the lunar module. As I mentioned at the outset of this video, one of the lessons of Apollo is that through adversity can come growth. In his book, Failure is Not an Option, Gene Kranz talks about one of the final simulations that his team underwent before the Apollo 11 mission. Now, usually the last training exercise before a actual mission is, as he called it, a graduation ceremony. It's supposed to be one where you leave the team feeling good about how they're going to do, and so give them a positive attitude going into the actual mission. But this one didn't go that way. They had a lot of problems, and one of the things the team was confronted with was a 1201 alarm. This was an alarm from the computer saying that it was being overloaded, and it wasn't handling all of the things that it was being asked to do. I compare this to sometimes I have to go help troubleshoot people using computers, and I point out that they have 18 windows open on their browser, and they're trying to run 3 other programs in the background. The computer may not be able to do all that. So what ended up happening during this one of these final trainings before the actual Apollo 11 mission was that the flight controllers decided to call an abort because the computer was being overloaded. Then the flight simulation supervisor came and said, well, why did you call an abort? There was no reason to call an abort. It wasn't an abort situation. It just meant the computer was saying it was not doing everything that it was being asked to do, but it was still doing the things that it was supposed to do. It was still capable of landing on the moon. So in a situation like that, you should not have called for an abort. Well, that upset the flight controller somewhat, I'm sure. They went back to their drawing boards, literally in some cases, writing up different procedures and rules about when to abort and when not to abort. And a 1201 alarm was not considered to be an abort situation in and of itself. So, during the actual Apollo 11 landing on the moon, there was these program alarms, 1201, 1202, and they both indicated that the computer was being tasked to do too much. It couldn't do it all, so it wasn't doing it all. But had they not had the experience of finding out in their final practice runs that you don't have to abort for something like that, it's possible they could have aborted that mission, and Apollo 11 would have never landed on the moon. But they did have that adverse experience, and so therefore, as a result, they did not abort the Apollo mission, and as we famously know, Apollo 11 landed successfully on the moon. I'm sure some of you are wondering why it has taken so long for me to produce this latest video. The truth is that we have confronted some adversity in my family. In fact, I was in the hospital room of a family member when we were watching the 50th anniversary celebration of the Apollo 11 landings. But as I said, through adversity comes growth, and that has been proven in our own lives recently as much as it was proven during the Apollo missions. I'll talk more about that in a later episode. Until then, Godspeed.